Hello, we are now on page 5 of the Sotah, the fourth day of studying it, and here the Torah, the Talmudic tractate talks about arrogance. We mentioned last time about the idea of arrogance and how terrible it is. So he tells us much more about the ideas of arrogance and the ways in the light of the Torah. So first of all, he says that the Torah warns against arrogance and haughtiness. And what does it cause when you are arrogant? So number one, it says that if you are arrogant, you'll forget God because there's no room for God in your life. Secondly, we're told that if you're arrogant, you become small. You become small. Then we're told, but even if you're arrogant, if you change your life and you bring humility in your life, then you'll live out your life like Abraham, who it says, Bakoil, that he lived fully and completely a beautiful life. Also, it says about arrogance, just like a farmer. When he cuts his stalks in his field, he cuts the tallest stalks, the tallest bushes and trees. So too, when you're haughty, you stand out and you get cut first. But God forbid anything that goes on, you're the first one to be cut and to lose your life. Also, it says, we're told that God raises those who are humble and actually accepted that not only he raises those who are humble, but actually God lowers himself to the people who feel humble and feel lowly by themselves. Not lowly, they feel nothing, but they feel humble. They don't have any arrogance. And we bring it that just like by Matan Torah, when Hashem gave us the Torah, he lowered himself to Mount Sinai. He didn't go to the taller mountains. However, he didn't go to the taller mountains. He went to Mount Sinai. So too Hashem lowers himself to anyone who is humble. Some say that someone who is arrogant doesn't merit Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead. Because haughty people do not have a part in Tchias HaMesim, as it says, Sheichniar, it's those who are neighbors to the ground, those who feel humble, not those who feel closer to heaven in the sense that they're very haughty and arrogant. Also, we're told that God cries over the future fate of people who are haughty because he knows what the ultimate future is. And it tells us about God's humility himself, that God is great, but God looks down at everyone beautifully and sympathetically and almost to say equally. Whereas humans, the nature of the human is the more successful and higher you are in the stratosphere of life, the more you look at people of your kind, you don't look down to people under you. So we have to be like God to look at lower people and ourselves to feel humble ourselves. Also, it says that God says, I cannot dwell in the same place as someone who's arrogant. There's no space for arrogance. When someone's arrogant, they take up the whole room. There's only space for God to be there. And some say actually that this statement that God doesn't dwell with people who have a certain character goes in Lashon Hara, people talk evil gossip. Also, it says that those who are arrogant, even a small wind, meaning even a small event, can cause them tremendous damage in their life, in their personal life, just like the sea, which the sea consists of many, 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 many liters of water, and a little wind can cause the dust to come up and make it dirty. So to a human being, that a human being to live only needs a revius, a quarter of a lug of water, not many liters of water, and yet arrogance brings a terrible damage to a person, to that little bit amount of life of liquid they have in their body, which represents life. On the other hand, the Talmud says at the same time, it says that every scholar, a rabbi, should have a backbone. What does it mean? You have to have what we call shminis shebishminis. It's an eighth of an eighth, which is a 64th. Everyone should have a little bit of a backbone, not so much of arrogance, but a backbone so you can withstand ridicule and pressure. Because it's easy if you don't have a backbone that everyone can pressure you and can push you and can get you to bend. But to lead and to give authoritative opinions, you have to have a bit of a backbone. And it says it crowns him. If you have only a little bit of that level of ego, it crowns him like the growth around the husk, that it crowns the husk. Rava says that the one who has total arrogance is cursed, and the one who has no arrogance is cursed. You have to have a little bit, because or else you will not be able to lead properly. You'll always buckle under the pressure of people who push you for whatever reason. But there's an opinion in the Talmud that Rav Nachum, the son of Yitzchak, says you should have none at all. You should have no arrogance at all. When you have the pride, you have the pride of the knowledge of Torah and who you represent, but you yourself personally have no arrogance at all in your life. And then it says that our prayers are answered only when we're not arrogant. Because it says, when it talks about the laws of taras of leprosy, it says, Adam, a person who has taras, and it never says the word vinirp, he'll get healed. But when it says basar, a flesh, which flesh is soft, there it says the word healed. So we said if a person's Adam behaves arrogantly, there's no healing for the person. But someone behaves like basar, softly and humbly, there's healing in that person's life. Also, the word Adam itself, which stands for three letters, Afer. Aleph is Afer, dust, Dam is blood, and Mem is Mara, is bile. A person's made up of what? You're made up of dust, blood, and bile. That's what makes you up as a person. So what are you arrogant about? And even the word basar, which flesh means, stands for busha, shame, srucha, putrid drop, and rima, worms. Or some say that that shin is shail, is purgatory. So a person's whole life, what are you arrogant about? Where did you come from? What do you consist of? You're dust and earth. So if you think about that, you won't be arrogant. Also, we're told that eventually, if someone who is arrogant and bloated, they'll be deflated. It's going to happen. We're also told that humble people are held in high esteem, because for every sin, God appointed a different sacrifice that we have to bring in the temple to atone for that sin. But when someone is humble in their prayers, it says a broken heart is like equal to all the sacrifice. When you have a broken heart, when you're humble by yourself, it's like you brought all the sacrifices together. And I just want to share a story that happened with Rav Wolf Kitzis, a student of the Baal Shem Tov, and every year the Baal Shem Tov used to get someone to blow the shofar in his synagogue, and he used to give them all the Kabbalistic insights into what you're supposed to have in mind when you blow the shofar. And only great people who already had a tremendous knowledge in the open part of Torah, the Talmud and the Kabbalah, were able to understand it. And Rav Kitz's practice for a while to remember everything that he had to have in mind when he blew the shofar. But that morning when he came to blow the shofar, there was a big wind and all his papers fell out of his hand and he lost it. And it comes to shul and he feels terrible. He says, how am I going to now serve my teacher and blow the shofar? And everyone's relying on me. And the Baal Shem Tov is the leader of the world. If he doesn't have a proper blower, shofar blowing, what's it going to look like Rosh Hashanah? But he had no choice. He had to go up. When he got up, he had such a broken heart that he blew the shofar and he felt that he did such a bad job and he really let down his teacher, that he told his that the minute prayer was over, he planned to run out of shul. He was so embarrassed. But the Baal Shem Tov put him before he ran out of shul and said, "Both, what were you thinking about when you blew the shofar?" So he was embarrassed. He said, "Oh, I got caught." So he says, Rebbe, so the Baal Shem Tov says, "I don't know what you were thinking about, but today's shofar blowing is the best shofar blowing I ever heard before in my life." So then he told him they had a broken heart. He said, "That's the answer. When you have a broken heart, it's like a master key. Every prayer is like a key to a room in heaven. But when you have a broken heart, it's like a master key. So when you have humility, this is where your prayers are all answered in the best way." And Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi ends off this discussion and he says, on top of having humility, not being arrogant, whoever calculates every action and realizes the long-term reward as opposed to the short-term physical or selfish gain that they may have in every action, they would do what's right and it would keep them in the straight and narrow of living a Jewish life. Then the Gemara goes on to clarify the words of the Mishnah, where the Mishnah says, where when we talk about warning, it says the husband has to say, don't talk to this person. And then the Mishnah says that if the person, you said don't talk, and the person, the woman was found with this person in a room alone, then you can't bring him you can't bring her to Jerusalem to have her drink the water. It's worthless what you warned her, don't talk to this person. So the Gemara asks, it's a contradiction. First you said your warning is don't talk. Then you said if you said don't talk and she hid with him, then nothing happens. So what's a warning? He says, like often the Mishnah talks very short, shorthand doesn't give the whole the whole sentence, and it says really like this: when he in a warning, if he says don't talk, and she talks to the person, or she's even found hidden with the person, nothing happens. It's not a proper warning. But if you said don't hide, I don't want you to be found hidden with this person in a room alone, and she talked to him, nothing happens either. But he said I don't want you hidden with this person, and she's found by the husband or by a witness or two witnesses that she went into this with this person into hiding into a room in a closed door, then all the laws apply, and she has to go to get a drink, the potion. Now we talk about the next part of the Mishnah. Next part of the Mishnah says that let's say the person dies before he had a chance to take his wife up to Jerusalem to drink the potion. So then and they were childless. According to Jewish law, she has to do yibum and marry the brother of her husband. But in this case, she does not marry the brother of the husband. She gets chalitza. She has to sort of separate the process of chalitza, which is similar to a divorce. So the Gemara says, why? Why doesn't she marry the person? So the Gemara brings an answer because it says in the verse when it talks about Sotah, she has to go and to be with another person. It doesn't say she can go to be with someone else. It says with a person, acher, another one. Why does it add the word acher? See, it tells us that it has to be someone separate, not someone who's related to the husband, which is his brother. So if so, the Gemara says, so why do you even need chalitza? Why do you even need to separate the marriage by the process of chalitza if already the Torah says that it's acher, he's not connected to the man anymore? So the Gemara says, just like if the husband was alive, he would have to give her a get. She doesn't get the ketuvah and all the money with it, but he has to still give her a get to sever their marriage. So too, because the marriage sort of goes inherently to the brother, but they just have to do the process of yibum to make it complete. They have to do the process of chalitza to sever the marriage fully. Others say that when it says "v'hoiseli shachar shall beat another person," means that that she shouldn't break his house. So meaning that she shouldn't break the home of the person. So someone totally different. So therefore, his brother, his house includes his brother. So when she's childless, she has to go through chalitza because he cannot marry her and break the house of her husband and his brother included. So then the Gemara says, why marry anyone? Maybe she shouldn't be allowed to marry anyone once she was in this position and he died. So the answer is, no one is forcing her to marry the other person. If the other person wants to marry her, he can. But to say that the Torah mandates that because her husband died childless, that she has to marry the person, that no. Others say the word acher means that she's no more the match of her husband, meaning she left a sinner and she's still a sinner. So what now? She should marry her husband's brother? If she's no more the match of the husband, she should marry the husband's brother. So Abaya says, so if so, what happens if she married someone else and the man died childless and she didn't do anything while in that marriage? Maybe she shouldn't marry the yibum. Maybe she shouldn't marry the brother of that second person she married because it says li shacha, you have to marry someone else. He says no, only acher, only if she sinned under, or it's a doubt if she sinned. We're not sure. We can't verify. Then she has to go to marry outside of the family. But in the marriage that she's currently in, she didn't sin, and there's no doubt about her sinning and no suspect. So therefore, it's not a problem. She goes to be together with the other person. Then Rava says like this. He says, actually, we know it's from a kal v'chomer. The idea that kal v'chomer is one of the ways that we're able to derive many laws. That if we look at a more simpler law, and the law is like such, that we say in a more severe case, for sure the law would be such as well. So we said like this: her husband, who was permitted to her, who was permitted to her, now is forbidden. He died, but now is forbidden. So her brother-in-law, who was always forbidden to her, so now what? He's going to become permitted? For sure, he's forbidden. So the husband that she was allowed to live with him, now she can live with him. Their brother-in-law, she wasn't allowed to live with him. So now what? She's allowed to live with him. That doesn't make any sense. The Abaya says, wait 1 second. I have a similar scenario. What happens if a Kohen Gadol, a high priest, who's not allowed to marry an almana, a widow, and he marries a widow while he's high priest, which is something he's not supposed to do, and he dies, but he has a brother who's not a high priest, and he's allowed to marry a widow. So why don't we say there as well that because she now became forbidden to her brother, to the Kohen Gadol, so how could she was forbidden from this brother who's not a Kohen Gadol, who's not a high priest all the time? So the Gemara says that's not a question, because the whole marriage of the high priest to this widow was always in sin. So because that was always in sin, there's no time of permission and no time of sin, of prohibited. But when it's talking about the regular person who was married to a woman, he's allowed to be married. But then he became forbidden to be with her because she did a sin. So now we say so to her, the brother-in-law, just because the husband died, the brother-in-law now, who was always forbidden, now he should be permitted. But we say that this is similar to another case. Case is where if you have a kohen, and the kohen was married to a woman, and the law is if a woman was raped and she's married to a kohen, even though it was done not against her will, she's not allowed to be married to him anymore. But this kohen has a brother, a half brother, who was born to his father, or a brother was born to his father, and is a cholol because his father was married also to a woman who's divorced, either a second marriage or a second wife, and this child was never able to serve in the temple. Therefore, the laws of the temple don't apply to him. He can marry someone who was forced, who was raped. So therefore, now this kohen, who is a full kohen, whose wife was raped, and now he has to let go of her, or he dies. What happens to her brother? To his brother, who's allowed to marry her. So what do we say then? Do we say, oh, now he's allowed to marry her and it's not a problem? So there we say the same idea. If she was permitted to be with her first husband, the kohen, and now she's forbidden to be with him, how can it be the brother-in-law, who she was forbidden to be with him because she was married to his brother? How can she now allowed to be with the brother-in-law? So he says that's not a similar case either. Why is it not a similar case? Because there, the two Kohanim, even though they're brothers, they have two different laws. To one Kohen, she is forbidden. To one Kohen, she's permitted. So in the case of two brothers who have the same law, so there we can say, there we can say if she's forbidden to her husband now after she was permitted, she can't be permitted to someone who she was forbidden before, the brother-in-law. But when they have two different laws initially, then it's a very different story, because for the brother who is not a full Kohen, he never was forbidden to her. This type of prohibition of being married to a woman who was raped is never applied to her. So therefore, it's a different scenario. And this finishes off today's daf. We'll be back on Friday with the next pages. Tag Sameach.